Hip and the lip. From unknown parts of metropolitan New York City, I am the hip and this is the lip.
Oh, wow. Look at that energy from the hip. Well, good evening, everybody in Hip and the Lip Nation land on this Wednesday evening, the 27th day of July and the third day of the Democratic National Convention, a week after the third day of the Republican National Convention. Ooh, very spine-tingling, I feel right now.
Yeah, it's not like there's anybody important speaking tonight or anything like that.
Yes, that's right, everybody. The hell with the potential vice president or the vice presidential candidate for Democrats, and with the current president and all that. WGAS, all that. The hip and the lip are on. Although you'll be listening to this after it's over anyway, so that's fine.
This is a New York Islanders podcast of Hip, that's me, and the Lip, that's you, and we are in Islanders off-season mode. So we picking up the theme from last week, we will do our few minutes on whatever Islander updates there are. Last week you anticipated there wouldn't be any updates. Well, maybe there is something. We'll get to that. Then within the last few hours, we had some breaking Jets news. So we'll get into that.
Poor Gino.
From another update from last week, the Yankees made a trade, so we'll talk about that and what may else be upcoming in the next 4 days as the trade deadline comes closing in. We'll get in some Mets. We'll get in a little Hall of Fame discussion as two legendary MLB players were inducted into the Hall of Fame this past Sunday. And finally, maybe a little bit of basketball. There was a surprise update there as well. So I don't know if you could hear this coming off of my earphones, but what that just was a video feed on the Bloomberg website. This article came out the day after our last show, because I was already asked questions. Oh, what about this news about the Islanders? I'm like, well, the article came out the day after our last show. Okay. Bear with us here. So, and I read the article fine. This is, and I'll let you get into it, but I'll start by prefacing that this video feed of the article is considered breaking news. So with that, what breaking news is there with the New York Islanders?
Oh, I know. Breaking news that the Islanders are thinking about the possibility of entering discussions with the city of Queens and the Mets, and now Belmont. Don't forget Belmont, too. That's out there, too. Hey, Islanders are getting a new arena right next to the Belmont racetrack. They can, maybe they can train with, the horses in preparation for the races in the fall.
Well, maybe they could spend a third of their home games at Nassau Coliseum, a third of their home games at Belmont, and a third at Barclays. What do you say? Next year.
Well, what about Queens? You ever refurbish? Well, but I'm saying, what about the Mets? What about Willits?
Oh, all right. You know what? Then let's do a quarter of the home games at each of those 4 locations. That might be a good make everyone happy resolution.
Yeah, there you
Breaking news! The Islanders are thinking about moving to Queens. Oh,
they are at least thinking about the possibility of considering entering into discussions with the Mets and with Belmont and maybe with Nassau County too, with the Nassau Coliseum.
I don't know. It was 2 months ago. We had an article about the Islanders maybe going back to Brooklyn, that the players are unhappy with the trek they have to make from Long Island to Brooklyn and la. Maybe that's, you know why maybe this is happening? Because Howie Rose left MSG. Maybe that's
it's all a ploy to get back Howie. They're saying,
so
Howie, we need you back.
Yes, and if they're near Citi Field, well, the proximity, maybe Howie comes back. I actually have they announced who's replacing Howie?
It's still undetermined. We don't know.
They must be interviewing. I mean, is Chris King the natural incumbent here, or I guess they're clearly must be considering other options.
Yeah, if they were going to hire King, it probably would have heard it. Or I mean, it's possible that they're just interviewing other people, but I honestly don't know who they're considering. I guess Steve Mears, who's a broadcaster for the league. I think he does like NHL.com broadcast, a few other things. I'm not that familiar with him, but his name's been thrown out there. But I haven't heard anything else. So maybe it is all a ploy to bring back Howie. Howie, come back. We'll go wherever you want. Queens, Belmont, back to the Coliseum. Come back.
I'll throw out a name. The Lip.
Should I send him my demo tape?
I'm sure they're already listening. So just get your.
If they give me a call and say.
Yeah. Say, are you ready? All right.
Well, I think it's more natural that you'd be the play-by-play guy and I'd be the color commentator, though. So how about the Hip and Lip as a team?
What happens to Butchie?
Well, three-man booth. We'll have like we co-commentators, you and Butchie. You'll tag team.
I'm sure Butchie would be all in.
Great point, Butchie.
With Susan, at the pre and post game and intermission. Excellent. All right. Well, I think that's sufficient for tonight on the Islanders.
Well, I'll just say one thing.
All right.
Well, I mean, first off, I don't think this is. I think this is all just this is all just smoke where there's no fire. I think Ledecky is probably, the Islanders' new owner is probably furious over this. Even if there's any truth to it, he's got to be absolutely furious over this news coming out, considering that it was only 2 weeks ago that he came out and said Brooklyn is our home. We are committed to Brooklyn and Barclays Center, and now all of a sudden you have multiple stories out about 2 weeks later about how they could be moving to Queens or Belmont. I mean, we've heard this Willets Point thing before. This has been out. There was a big story a couple of years ago. With the Mets and the Wilpons and Sterling Equities, and then Madoff happens, and that's not happening now. And I mean, the Mets have been in talks. It seems like forever to get that whole area developed with the chop shops and everything going on at Willets Point, which hasn't happened because of bureaucratic red tape. So honestly, come on, it's ridiculous to even talk about this like it's a legit story. Like the Post picks it up, and then Newsday and everybody else because Bloomberg has it. Well, Bloomberg's a reputable, business news provider, so that means it must be credible. It must be it must be accurate. Which even if sources confirm that there have been talks, I think it's all a bunch of nonsense. Talk to me when there's actual news, breaking news. It's
credible when it's breaking that you're pondering. You're pondering the possibility of something. Breaking.
Well, you see that big red banner breaking. Oh my God! I gotta click on it. Hurry up! Let me see what's broken here. Let me see what's breaking. Oh look, Sharknado 4 is coming out this Saturday. Breaking news.
that might be more breaking than
this. And to get us ready for,
I think Bloomberg outsmarted themselves, I think on this one, whatever they dug up for this, they probably got a lot of clicks out of it, and we're talking about them.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, but
there you go. All right. Well, I think we should stop talking about them in that case.
All right. Next.
So, all right. We're done with hockey for tonight. That's it. and here is a development that we weren't anticipating necessarily happening within a week's time, but it's done. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a New York Jet for the 2016-2017 NFL season.
And he'll be a Jet for only that season unless he plays well and they bring him back again for another year and so forth.
I will volunteer to provide my reaction before yours.
All right.
And it is this.
Well, you are a Jets fan, if just in case Hip and Lip Nation doesn't know.
I am a Jets season ticket holder.
I'm sorry, I stand corrected.
How about that? Yes. That doesn't mean I'm a fan.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I apologize, for labeling you as a fan when just because you're a season ticket holder doesn't mean you actually go to the games to see a Jet victory. You maybe have
even if it's the only team I'm a season ticket holder of, it doesn't mean I'm a fan. So I think subconsciously this signing today for Jet fans is more of relief than excitement. This has been the uncertainty that's been hanging over this club and its fans since since the Super Bowl ended, because the contract was up and it was an uncertain QB situation. And I think fans throughout this time, and look, the Jets drafted Christian Hackenberg in the 3rd round. I don't know. I think it was later than that. I don't remember. As a rookie quarterback from Penn State on the roster, and of course, Geno Smith still on the Jets. But I think Jets fans.
Don't forget Bryce Petty. Bryce Petty too.
Bryce Petty. Oh, dare I? There's plenty of Jets fans who suggest giving the kid a shot. Thank you. But I think the uncertainty that any of those situations faced proved too uneasy for Jets fans, hence why this is more relief than excitement. Because, look, Ryan Fitzpatrick did not get you, or us, I'm saying you, did not get us to the playoffs last year. He tanked against his former team in Week 17 with a brutal fourth-quarter interception that ended the game.
Now you're saying us. I'm sorry, I cut you off because you're saying us now. You said who's us now?
Us
pray
fans,
tell.
not you.
I see.
Right, just to be clear here, it's not the Lip. Lip is not part of us when we talk about the Jets. It's us Jet fan listeners, fans, podcast subscribers. Thank you for subscribing to Hip and the Lip on iTunes, by the way. A little plug. All right. So, look, Ryan Fitzpatrick had the best, I think the most passing yards ever for a Jet quarterback. It was also his most passing yards in a season, his most touchdown passes in a season with 31. Look, you might say it was a career year for the guy. Probably was.
Oh, absolutely.
But he's on the wrong side of 30. He puts himself in precarious situations. He is prone to injury, although I will say I had thought until I looked it up earlier that he missed more time than he actually has. He's missed a handful of games here and there, but it's not like he's out of the lineup half the time each year. He plays for the most part. But
he plays when he's been given the opportunity, but he's a journeyman. He's been a journeyman his whole career.
I don't see him doing any better than he did last year. Ryan Fitzpatrick got away with a lot of – look, he has talent around him. Maybe he has more talent around him this year. But he got away with a lot of questionable throws during the season. See, the thing about Fitzpatrick is his arm strength is limited. So teams can – look, this is stuff that Jets fans know already. Okay, I'm just reminding them because you can have short memories. But Ryan Fitzpatrick does not throw a pass over the top of the defense and completes it. It just doesn't happen. Okay? So he has to throw it into tight windows and make throws before the receivers make their cuts. He has to be – the timing with his receivers have to be impeccable. He has the receivers to achieve that in Marshall and Decker. That's a good thing. But as this guy gets older each year, he's just not going to be as precise, and his mistakes are his bad throws are going to be more interceptions than they were in previous, even last year included. And he's had seasons where he just would throw a lot of picks. So, look, is he the best option for the Jets this year? Probably. Geno Smith is a huge wild card. And Jet fans and the New York sports market in general, they typically can't swallow a wild card like Geno Smith going into the season. Okay, so Fitzpatrick gives you that stability going into the season. I think Geno's going to get a chance at some point this year. Is it because of ineffectiveness of Fitzpatrick? Is it because Fitzpatrick goes down? Probably more likely the latter. But look, all bets are off. I think after week 1. They're paying Fitzpatrick $12 million, which is not a crazy number, actually. I had thought they would pay him more. I don't know if Fitzpatrick just decided to cave or whatever, but look, I could go into this whole thing on Geno Smith now, and maybe I will. Maybe I just will. Let's get it out there, and then you care to react to however you have. So I think Geno Smith is somewhat scarred mentally as an NFL quarterback. And the question is, can those scars heal? Oxymoron. Those scars remain and affect him going forward. Okay, so what do I mean by that? When Geno Smith was drafted, I believe it was it 2 years prior? RG3 and Andrew Luck say in the reverse order. Andrew Luck and RG3 were taken first and second in the NFL draft. Was it 2 years prior? I don't remember. Maybe 3 years. Point regardless. The drafting of those two quarterbacks in particular and them playing immediately as starters and being relatively successful as rookies and as second-year players. Now, look, RG3 is hanging, his NFL career is now hanging on by a thread. Andrew Luck's is not. But it's very rare for a rookie quarterback to come in and do well. I mean, that's just, everybody knows that. But I think the recency bias of those two players in particular created this this fantasy in Jets fans' minds that Geno Smith could immediately be the answer at quarterback for the Jets and for the future because the Jets took him. And this is a shiny new toy. And so let's get him out there. And what happened? He was essentially a disaster. He wasn't ready. Now, maybe he'll never be ready. I don't know. That certainly remains possible. He's damaged goods in that sense that he's gone through this, the New York media blitz of being a really awful quarterback. And I think going into the season, if Geno Smith is your quarterback, he's going to face that same level of media attention, and I just don't think it puts him in a position to succeed at the start. So if Geno Smith, though, comes in a non-presser, relatively speaking, situation, it might be able to allow him to succeed without that distraction. Now, you might say that comes with the distractions come with the territory being an NFL quarterback. Fine. But Geno, I think, needs at least first to get confidence by playing well, and that in turn can take the potential distractions out of his mind and actually let him settle down and potentially be a decent – we know the athleticism is there. We all know it. He's just made some really stupid plays on the field that have burned him. And I've turned this into a Ryan Fitzpatrick signing as your Jets starting quarterback for Week 1 into the prospect of Geno Smith being the good Jets quarterback in the future. I will now stay silent.
So now what happens? Moving on next. Oh, you want me to get my 2 cents in? Is that is that next? All right.
All right.
All right. So here's what I take out of what you just said. I think, the word that stuck with me, at least in the beginning when you were talking about Fitzpatrick and, his play last year and, what his strengths are as a quarterback, what his weaknesses are as a quarterback. We all know is one of his, biggest weaknesses is his arm strength. You mentioned timing, which, quarterbacks that don't have that arm strength, that rely, on, having that timing and rhythm with their wide receivers. Remember, Ryan Fitzpatrick did not have any kind of offseason with his wide receivers. Granted, he was, with Marshall and Decker last year, and he'll have them both again this year, but he didn't train with them at all this past offseason. He didn't participate in any of the Jets mini camps or any of the off-season training programs since he was unsigned. So I think that potentially could be an issue. Now, it's good, of course, that he gets signed before training camp, and now he can slip right in. He'll be the starting quarterback from day one. We know that. There's no competition. That we know. He'll be their starting quarterback opening day, regardless of anything that happens in the off-season, in the preseason, I should say, barring injury. So as long as he's healthy, he'll be starting quarterback on day one. Doesn't matter what happens in the preseason or training camp. But I think as you said, considering that Fitzpatrick, and this is why the Jets didn't want to give him what he wanted, and that's why there was a stalemate for as long as there was with their contract negotiations. Ryan Fitzpatrick has been a career journeyman. He has been a guy that has bounced around from team to team. He is a guy that's been looked at as maybe an adequate backup but never a starter. The Jets, last year, they needed a quarterback. They bring him in. He ends up, winning the starting job, and he did a great job. I mean, he had his best season of his career by a mile. He almost led them to the playoffs. Yes, he didn't play well in that last game against Buffalo. Yes, he has limitations as a quarterback. We know that. But he also, can make throws when he needs to. And he's he's a competent, capable NFL quarterback. Is that what you're looking for to lead you to a Super Bowl? Well, the amazing Peyton Manning had one of the worst statistical seasons, obviously, of his career. But just relatively to other quarterbacks, a terrible year last year, but the team won the Super Bowl. The Jets have a good defense. They brought in a running back in Matt Forte, who I think can still play. That gives them another weapon. They have a good defense. Is it great? We'll see if they could be great, but they have the potential to be very good. They have a lot of talent on that defensive line and that front seven. And the secondary too. I mean, they have a very talented defense. So is that a winning formula for them? No Brady for New England the first 4 games. I still have to do my research and scouting, in preparation for the fantasy season. But I don't look at Buffalo and Miami as threats next year. I mean, they could both be decent, but I think the Jets should be better than both of them. And if the Patriots are not able to withstand no Brady the first 4 games, and if everything falls into place for the Jets, maybe we're talking about a Jets division title. Who knows? So,
just listening to this, man, I'm still in baseball mode, because it's the end of July. But now you're starting to bring up other teams and evaluating them compared to the Jets. I'm getting ready for some football. I'm looking forward to getting into this in future episodes. The next month, really, maybe month and a half. Looking at teams. We're going to get into some fantasy stuff. I have never been afraid to share my strategies, the players I like, because it usually, I don't want to sound too cocky, but it usually doesn't come back to haunt me that much. It could, but it's fun to just throw it out there anyway and win leagues anyway. So we're gonna do it again. I'm happy to share. So look, more to come on this as the dust settles. We're gonna have more in-depth previews of the season of the Jets and Giants. But obviously we had to talk about it. The news just broke 3.5 hours ago that the deal was done. Again, to me, long story short, more relief than excitement. But I do agree with you. The formula is sufficient for a Super Bowl run with Ryan Fitzpatrick and the rest of this team. I'd say it's possible. Had the Jets made the playoffs last year, they could have beaten Denver. I mean, I think it was possible. I think it is. Look, Denver's defense was really, really good, but it wasn't like they were dominating everyone along the way. So, and I think it's probably going to be a similar situation this year, but we'll see.
Oh, look, the Jets should have a pretty good team. I mean, we'll see how training camp unfolds, and as we get through the preseason and those scintillating preseason games where we see the starters play for 3 minutes, and then we get to see all the guys that'll be bagging groceries in a few weeks after play the most of the game. But as we get closer, like you said, we'll do we'll do a full NFL preview, and we'll do fantasy stuff and. Yeah, I mean, training camps are opening for NFL teams. I mean, the NFL season is here. And,
that's why I keep calling this the New York Islanders podcast.
Well, hey, as long as if there's any story, if there's any breaking news, we'll relay that breaking news on the podcast. So trust us, folks. We will always get in any little Islander tidbit that comes out. Now there's stuff about Tavares. Oh, are they going to be able to get him signed? They're not going to have a home, and just to throw another Islander tidbit in there. So that's the accompanying story to the Islanders potentially moving story. So
two people in the last 2 days asked me about that move to Queens story. Just throwing it out there. People are paying attention, and they like this gossip. All right, that's it. Moving on. The Yankees made a deal. Aroldis Chapman, we talked about him last week and throwing 104 miles an hour, now dons a Chicago Cubs uniform.
Will he be on the mound for when the curse is lifted? And what will he do if they do win and the curse is lifted? What will he do? Will he just throw his head up in the air? Will he go, all right, okay, next? Well, what will Aroldis Chapman do on the mound in Wrigley? If he strikes out a guy, whoever it may be, not a New York Yankee, of course, but maybe a Toronto Blue Jay, maybe a Boston Red Sox, maybe a Texas Ranger, with a blistering 105, maybe 160 mile per hour fastball, What will he do on the mound for the Chicago Cubs? But the Chicago Cubs are that much closer now to establishing themselves as the favorite to come out of the NL as the representative in the World Series.
This is a win to World Series move. There's no question. It's going to be pretty smooth sailing to make the playoffs for them at this point. So they're.
But does it make them the prohibitive favorite? I think it does. I think right now with that lineup, their pitching is not spectacular, but it's good. They have a terrific, very good lineup.
Their pitching's pretty good. Their pitching's pretty good.
I know. I mean, it's not the best rotation in baseball, but it's pretty good.
It's close. I think it's close, actually.
Okay, well, I mean, they have a really good team. I mean, they have a very good. They got the NLCS last year. The Mets just had their number. They outclassed them last year. The Cubs just, were not ready. A year makes a big difference.
Kyle, unsung hero of that rotation, Kyle Hendricks. I think he may have a lower ERA than Lester and Arrieta this year.
Really? Wow.
I believe he does. He doesn't pitch deep into games, but he has, and some experts are just waiting for him to fall off the map, but he refuses, and he just want to see what his ERA is, just so I can toot my horn. Yes, tooting horns. That's what hipsters do. They know Kyle Hendricks. They know Kyle Hendricks' ERA.
The immodesty of those hipsters tooting their own horns about their knowledge of Kyle Hendricks' ERA, of these number 3, number 4 pitchers' ERA on random national teams.
Guess what it is?
I'll say you're saying that you think it's lower, and I guess you've been validated. So I will guess 2.74.
2.39.
Is it that low? Wow. Is having that good of a season? Jeez, is he a keeper for next year in my league?
Yes.
I guess I gotta check.
You have him?
No, but if he's a keeper, I'm trading all my best players, so I may have to scout that.
Arrieta's 2.76. And Lester, there's no way Lester's 2.39.
Well, I mean, they have a very good 1-2 with those guys.
And you're talking about Hendricks as one, right?
I mean, you have of course. I mean, we'll see in the playoffs. I mean, Hendricks.
Lester is 3.09. Lester is 3.09. So there you go. And then they have Lackey, and who's actually refuses to pitch like he's older, and Jason Hamill, who
they got a very good rotation. I guess
Jason Hamill is 3.23. Good Lord.
They got a very good rotation. They do.
Yep, and a very good lineup.
Very good lineup. Now a very good bullpen. I mean, they are the prohibitive favorites to come out of the National League.
Well, we've decided to spend like 5 minutes on the Cubs, and
we'll
we happen to mention the passing.
Because the country will have Cub fever if they get to the World Series. Everybody, except for the other teams' fans, will be rooting for the Cubs. They'll be America's darlings, if not for a couple of weeks. So
MLB would love a Cubs World Series.
Oh my God!
I think they were happy either way with Mets or Cubs last year. I think the different reasons, because the Mets are in New York and haven't won in a while, and the Cubs are what they are. But now I think it's clearly the Cubs' turn, and
Cubs and Fox hoping for the Cubs in the world. Well, Cubs Red Sox, they would love them. I mean, if they can choose a world, other than the Yankees, if they can choose a World Series, I mean, if they got Cubs Red Sox, I mean, they would have to go into their rooms and at least spend a few minutes in there to express their joy.
Do you have any comments other than the fact that the Yankees did what you insisted they did because they listened to you?
Yeah, so we went
to your advice.
The tangent went from the Chapman trade, Yankees. Oh, wait, we're going to talk about the Cubs now and how they may be breaking their curse. Hey, look, this was a move I said last week that they had to make. They did. Whoopee. Cashman said he got permission to do his job from the Steinbrenners, from the owners. So that was so kind of them to give him permission. And he made a good trade. At least, the scouts will tell you this is a good trade. Everything that, you've been reading about this one prospect anyway, this shortstop, Torres or something is his name. He's supposed to be a very good prospect. So we'll see, if he pans out. He's only 19. So maybe he'll be
I've heard
decent.
people say, "Oh, well, they already have Didi Gregorius." Yeah, but you know what? Shortstops are short-lived positions. Didi Gregorius in 2 years is probably won't even be playing shortstop. I mean, look, there are guys who end up playing shortstops their entire career, like Derek Jeter, but shortstop's a position guys are moving away from more than probably any other position. Maybe except for catcher, no, guys who catchers end up staying. So I feel like that is a not a reason to not do the deal. And obviously Cashman, you know, feels that way. So
Yeah, they get a top prospect. They get a couple other apparently decent prospects, and they get back an old friend, Aaron Warren. So apparently that was the turning point, is that they needed to get back Aaron Warren for the Steinbrenners to sign off on this move. So they bring back an old friend. They bring back a couple good prospects for a guy that was going to be a free agent at the end of the year. And if the Cubs don't sign him, then the Yankees can still sign him anyway. So let's, we'll see what happens. But this was something that they had to do. They did. Now let's see if Cashman is given permissions. Is given if the shackles are removed from him again to be able to trade Beltran and maybe a few other guys that if they can get rid of, they should do it in a heartbeat. So we'll see what happens.
They're hanging on just enough to keep it interesting, as far as whether they actually will. It's making it Cashman's job harder.
Yeah, no. Well, the Yankees. Well, they lost tonight, I guess. Or they're losing 4-1. The game's not over yet, but they're losing tonight. The Yankees, I believe, were four back, I believe, in the loss column. Wait, let me see.
Toronto.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They're 3 back in the loss column to the Blue Jays, and they're 4 back to I guess both Baltimore and Boston. So, I mean, just that. I mean, that by itself, I don't think Beltran's gonna get traded at this point. If you ask me my honest opinion, I think the Yankees are probably even looking to reserve the Canyon of Heroes for their parade in October or November after they win the World Series. I mean, they're probably thinking like, hey, I mean, we're shooing out for the playoffs, and you know what? We might as well book the Canyon of Heroes right now because we'll be marching down there. So, fans, get your tickets now. Get your tickets for the Canyon of Heroes parade right now. Everybody, come and get them. So, unfortunately, the Yankees have had to win a few games, and now they probably won't be making any other seller-type moves, or at least anything that'll be perceived as selling, like trading Beltran or Gardner or whoever. So, but we'll see if Cashman can pull off anything crafty here, and try and maybe get the Steinbrenners to sign off on something else that may be able to help them down the line.
Well, Michael Pineda's contributing to making the decision more difficult, as he had another dominant outing, second in a row, as he shut down the Astros 2 nights ago with 7 innings, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, picked up the W. I will say he did get lucky a bit. There were a couple hard hit balls that were close to fielders, and they made good plays. But you know what? And he surrendered a home run to the first batter he faced, and that was the only run he surrendered. So this guy will tease you. I'm sure in a week's time I will be expressing frustration on his inconsistencies.
Well, maybe expressing that frustration with him demonstrating those inconsistencies wearing another uniform.
You think they would consider giving him up?
Yeah, well, his name's been thrown out there, so I wouldn't be surprised.
What's his contract?
I think he's still signed for. I think he's still signed for another year or 2. I think at least he's not a free agent at the end of the year. I don't think so. But his name's been out there. He's been talked about as potentially a trade candidate.
Another trade candidate with an ERA over 5. This is cute. This is pile him on. We talked about Drew Smyly last week. Pineda, I'm pretty sure, even after Monday's dominant outing, he's actually at 5 exactly.
Is he really?
Yeah, on the season. You gotta love those peripheral K to walk ratio dynamos whose ERAs are over 5.
What's the batting average balls in play? What is that currently at right now? I'm sure it went down a little bit after his outing the other day. His last 2 outings, as you mentioned. Not much to
say about the Mets, I guess. In a week's time, really. They, I think they won tonight. They came back. Is it over? what happened here? I think they won. Nope, I'm mistaken. Wait a minute. I assumed they won, but Familia blew it.
Familia blew the save. Wow, his first blown save of the year?
First blown save of the year, first blown save in like 60 tries.
Wow.
You know, I saw, and here's me being so accustomed to, look, I saw that the Mets took the lead 4-3. Cespedes hit a 2-run homer in the 7th. So they put them up 4-3. And it was the bottom of the 8th, and then we started the show. So I just checked again, and 5-4. Game's over.
Wow. And the Yankees have lost too, so it's official. So not a good night for the New York baseball teams as both of them lose. The Mets with a excruciatingly painful home loss to the St. Louis Cardinals on the heels of a blown save by Jeurys Familia. Someone should have reminded him that it was not a tie game or that they were not losing in an inning other than the 9th, and maybe he would have got the save again. Maybe he thought it was tied or something when he came in. So how about that for Mr. Familia, his first blown save of the year? Well, I mean, the Mets, nothing has changed with them, really. They're kind of like muddling along as they've been doing for the last, it seems like, well, really most of the year. I mean, it just seems like they'll have a decent stretch, and they'll have a bad stretch, and then another pretty good stretch, and then a mediocre stretch. It's been that story with them all year. They're still tied for that second wild card. 4 back to the Nationals now, and at least in the loss column, as the Nationals have stubbed their toe a bit. So the Mets are.
Daniel Murphy hasn't. He's up to 20 homers now, by the way.
Is he really? How about that?
2 more homers in the last week, so he continues on.
And he continues to have his torrid season.
The Mets. I don't know if Sandy's going to do anything. It'll be interesting. Next week we'll evaluate that.
I don't think he can do nothing. I think he'll make a move. It may not be a significant move. I think, as we talked about last week, it has to be a starting pitcher. I really think they have to go out and get a starting pitcher.
Logan Verrett was okay today. Wasn't great. Wasn't horrible. Kept him in the game. Gave the Mets a chance to win, and they pulled ahead in the 7th. But
and apparently
it was a matter of time for Familia to blow the save. So.
And apparently they're pitching Cologne on 3 days rest on Saturday, I believe. So that just tells you all you need to know about their AAA, or about their pitching in the minors right now. I mean, they have no confidence in anybody down there. So if there's, that alone tells you that they have to. That they are probably trying to find a pitcher that they have enough to give up for, and that they feel confident enough can step in every 5th day. That they have to go out and get a starting pitcher. As crazy as that sounds.
Are they pushing somebody back in the rotation?
Well, because of yesterday, because they had the doubleheader. It was rain on Monday, so Syndergaard and Cologne pitched yesterday. And usually when that happens, you have a guy to spot start. You either take a long guy out of the bullpen, or you call someone up from the minors. And since Logan Verrett was their spot starter and is now in their rotation, I guess they have absolutely nobody else that they have any faith in to give them even a couple, 4 or 5 decent innings. So they are starting Cologne on 3 days rest.
Wow.
So. And the rumor mill is almost empty. I mean, there's nobody out there. I mean, it's Chris Sale. We'll see what happens there. That's just a messed up situation. I don't know if you have any comments about that. That is a just bizarre situation with him and the White Sox. I mean, Andrew Cashner. Yeah. I mean, who else is out there for the Mets to get? I mean, nobody really of significance that we've heard about. Maybe Drew Smyly. Maybe Drew Smyly is available. Give him a call.
I read a piece this morning about analyzing why Drew Smyly may not be pitching as well as he's expected to, and it in part may have to do with want to get into the real depths of baseball. It might have to do with the fact that he's a rise fastball pitcher, and the Rays in general throw more rise fastballs than any other team, and there might be an adjustment from hitters to look out for that, because usually hitters look for pitches that, are lower in the zone or middle zone, not up. But I read it on Fangraphs. Fangraphs is a great site if you really want to delve into the depths of MLB statistics, which there's an endless supply of. Check out Fangraphs.com. Free promotion for a site I have no affiliation with, other than reading it. Let's talk about a former Met quickly here. And that is Mike Piazza. Let's give him some some cred here. We did discuss this player in one of our first episodes when it was announced that he would be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he, along with Ken Griffey Jr., were in fact inducted.
It was the first episode. It was actually the very first episode.
It was the first.
Yes,
okay.
it was.
Good memory. And so they were inducted on Sunday. And look, we always like to take trips down memory lane because that's what we do. That's why we watch sports. It's fun because these are moments in life when there's excitement and you remember them and they're stored there. That's why we watch, and that's why we talk about this. Yes. So Mike Piazza was a 62nd round draft pick, if you could believe that. Hit 427 home runs in his career, I believe just under 400 as a catcher, which is the most all time. Never won a World Series. He was in the World Series once, and that was in 2000. And I think anybody that was a Mets fan at the time will remember the moment in Game 2 of that World Series where Roger Clemens almost sliced him open with the shattered bat that almost hit Roger Clemens first, and he just oddly threw back towards Piazza. Bizarre turn of events.
Yeah, something that New York baseball fans remember very vividly, the rivalry between Clemens and Piazza.
Now, one thing I forgot about that game, that was Game 2 in 2000. Of course, the Mets swept the Yankees. Well, the Mets wish they swept the Yankees. The Yankees swept the Mets in that series.
Well, actually, no, they won in 5.
Thank you. They won in 5. I, as a Mets fan, I had wished that the Mets got swept.
Wait a minute, you were a Mets fan back then?
But in that game, Game 2, the Yankees were actually up 6-0, and the Mets rallied in the 9th. I don't remember this. I just don't. But the Mets scored 5 runs in the 9th inning.
3-run home run by Jay Payton off of Mariano Rivera.
See, this is why we have the lip on for plugs like those, because I'm sure you were all just dying to know the circumstances detailing the 5 runs in the 9th inning from the Mets. Anyway, Mike Piazza, 3rd try into the Hall of Fame. Just kind of sad. The state of the Writers Association, the writers who have votes for the Hall of Fame. I mean, no confirmed steroid usage, only speculation because the guy had back knee. I mean, come on. It's just frustrating, I guess, more than anything else, that a guy is going to be held back because of unproven speculation and nothing more. That's all I really have to say about that. Griffey, on the other hand, had the highest first ballot percentage ever for a Hall of Fame player, and it's not 100, which is also interesting. It was 99.3, but what that tells you is that no player ever got unanimously voted into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. I don't know about subsequent ballots. I'm not sure, but no player's ever gotten. So Babe Ruth, name whoever you want, your favorite, the player who you think was the best of all time. Ted Williams. Nope, somebody said he shouldn't get in the Hall of Fame first. Mickey Mantle, nope, shouldn't have gotten into the Hall of Fame. I mean, I can't even say this with a straight face.
I mean, it's something that as much as
Willie Mays. No, you know what?
It's a time-honored tradition of voting for players in the Hall of Fame, at least on the first ballot, is that nobody can get a unanimous vote. No, I don't know about that Babe Ruth guy. I don't know about that DiMaggio or that Gehrig or that that Ty Cobb guy. Like I said, you can go down the line of of the all-time greats, but but Griffey, Griffey's going to go down as an all-time great too. And what I was thinking the other day is during the induction ceremony, I had it on in the beginning. I was watching with my dad. We had we saw Piazza and then Griffey. And I was thinking just how much of a shame it was. And obviously I talked about this, but how Griffey was on pace just to shatter. I mean, it just seemed like it would have been like every offensive. I mean, home runs, maybe RBIs. It's he was on his way to having maybe the best career of any baseball player that's ever lived, and maybe he would go down as the best baseball player that's ever lived. And, after he got traded to Cincinnati, he just, he had one pretty good year. He was healthy, and then, it was just injury after injury after injury, and still ended up, with great Hall of Fame, tremendous numbers, and will go down as one of the top center fielders, one of the top players in history of the game. But could he have been more? Would he have been more? And he's a guy that's always been above suspicion regarding steroids for whatever reason. His body type, he was always a very tall, slender guy with that amazing swing. And he was just always above suspicion. That's why he got in, and that's why Piazza took him a couple tries before the writers said, maybe he didn't do steroids. Maybe we should let him in. Okay, let's let him in. Even though he was an obvious first ballot Hall of Famer.
Griffey was the first number 1 draft pick to reach the Hall of Fame. I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting.
Another player. I always think it's interesting to, we talk about these guys, all-time greats. Neither of those players won a World Series, Griffey or Piazza. Now, Griffey's probably biggest moment was beating the Yankees.
Yeah, coming around first base on the Edgar Martinez hit off of Jack McDowell in the 95 American League Divisional Series, game number 5. I'll still remember. Actually, I think I cried before I went to sleep that night. I was so excited. The Yankees were in the playoffs. I'm a 11-year-old, however I am, Yankee fan. The Yankees are in the playoffs. I had never saw them in the playoffs, and I'm so excited. And oh no, here comes Griffey, and the throw to the plate. He's safe. I gotta go to sleep and cry.
And you know what Seattle Mariner fans say? Shut the hell up. Because you guys went on to win how many championships since, and how many have we won since?
And the Yankees beat that 114 win, was it? Seattle Mariner team in 2001. They beat them in 6 games in the championship series that year. So, yeah, nobody remembers that team.
If we had any Seattle Mariner subscribers, I think we just lost them all.
Well, we praised Griffey. I mean, he was talking about how amazing Griffey was.
We did, but then we just nixed it all. Well, you know what? That's the reality. So
But I also mentioned how I cried before I went to sleep after that game ended. So
right, yeah,
gives them a little bit of joy.
I think Mariner fans have cried a lot more, although they probably haven't as much disappointing moments as compared to just the team not being as good in general. Any event, good enough. I just want to mention. David Ortiz, I don't know if anybody's really, yes, people are paying attention to this, but this is something that's historic going on right now. He's 40 years old, quietly, at 25 bombs and 84 RBIs. That was a day or two ago, so might have upticked a little. You don't realize how rare of a pace this is at 40 years old. In fact, can you tell me, Lip, how many players in MLB history have hit at least 30 home runs at 40 years or older in a season? Just 30.
Well, Bonds did it, right? I don't know. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody right now. Maybe there's a couple obvious ones that I should know. Bonds, but other than him.
Let's confirm, Barry.
I'm pretty sure Bonds did.
No, he did not.
No, he didn't. Okay, I'm wrong.
Nope.
I thought Bonds did.
He had 45 home runs in his age 39 season. In his age 40 season, he only hit 5 because he played 14 games. Actually, 5 is a lot in 14 games. But then in 41 and 42, did not top 30. He came close. So no.
All right. I give up. I got nobody.
So the major league.
I'd have to give it some serious thought, and we unless our listeners want to continue just to listen to me ponder, who it may be for the next
So
minutes.
So the record of most home runs in a season at 40 or older is Darrell Evans. In 1989, as a
Darrell Evans, wow.
I'm sorry. In 1987, he hit 34 home runs at age 40. Darrell
I
Evans
never
has
would have
4.
guessed him in a million years.
Do you know who he is?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he
He
played
has.
for Atlanta. I know he played for Atlanta. I think he had some I think his best years with Atlanta. I forget who else he played for.
He played with Atlanta. Then he played for the Giants and the Tigers for a few years.
Okay.
Darrell Evans in 1987 hit 34 bombs as a 40-year-old. That's the
Wow.
record.
That's amazing.
David Ortiz may destroy that.
It is pretty incredible. I mean, steroids or no steroids, and we know that he did it. He was on that list, so it's confirmed that he did do steroids. So the question now is, will he get into the Hall of Fame? Number one, because of steroids. Number two, because he's a DH. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing because David Ortiz. It seemed like how many times during his career over the last 5 or 6 years did people say, "Oh, he's done. He's finished. He can't hit his way out of a wet paper bag anymore. I mean, he's done." And and it looks like he is done. And you go, yeah, the guy looks like he should just hang him up. And then he comes back with a really good year. And then he goes through a stretch where he looks terrible. And then he comes back with a really good year. Like, what is going on with him? And yeah, and what he has done this year is nothing short of incredible. I agree. I mean, it's as a Yankee fan, I don't like to root for him. And he's killed the Yankees time and time again, but he has had an absolutely sensational season.
I want to just add something, and this is something I never heard of. Have you heard of the rabbit ball season?
Rabbit? Did you say rabbit?
Yep, like you pet it. Yep.
Rabbit ball season. Is it like this, like the Bud Bowl, or
1987 was the rabbit ball baseball season. And this is to take away from what Darrell Evans did in 1987.
This is to take
yes, to say that maybe it was an outlier.
So we'll disparage his record.
Here's the deal.
All right.
So in the decade of 1987, 8 of the top 14 home runs in a season were in 1987. 14 of the top 25 home runs in a season in that decade were in 1987.
Huh. I was not aware of this.
Yep.
That is interesting.
Yeah, there were also some, like Nolan Ryan. I'm just looking at some of this now. Nolan Ryan led the NL in ERA, but he was 8-16. Let's see what.
What did they attribute this to? What was the reason for these anomalies and home runs in 1987?
Sure.
Well, why was it called the Rabbit's Ball? Well,
MLB has never gone on record about what exactly changed inside the baseball to produce the unique season, but whatever alterations were made were quickly reversed afterwards. Well, that's based on a Hardball Talk article, and they're pretty reputable. It's MLB.NBCSports.com now, but just anyway, so David Ortiz is doing some magical things in his career as a hitter, and still. Enough about that. There's one other thing I want to talk about here. This was news from yesterday. Now, still staying on theme in New York sports. We haven't talked about New York Knicks yet on this podcast, and that's changing right now. Amari Stoudemire announced his retirement from the NBA at 33 years old yesterday, signing a one-day contract with the New York Knicks just to mess with their payroll a little bit more and retire as a Knick. Now, anybody that paid attention to the Knicks in, 5 years ago knows that Amari Stoudemire was not originally a Knick. He was a Phoenix Sun and had his best years with the Suns, and then signed a 5-year, $100 million deal with the New York Knicks in 2010. So it begs the question, did he retire as a Knick because they paid him the most, or should I say overpaid him the most?
Yeah.
And probably is one of the main reasons, and there's others, but as far as awful contracts the Knicks signed, just one really brutal one that is still having its effects today on this organization. So 33 years old and out of the league.
Yeah, they thought they were going to get LeBron James going to come running through the door behind him after they signed him. That never happened. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why. I mean, obviously, I guess, excuse me, he had some amazing years with the Knicks, right? I mean, he must have had, like
amazing
5 or 6 incredible years. Oh wait, no, actually, 1 year. And then he punched, like a window or like a mirror or something during the playoffs.
It was a fire. I think if I remember correctly, it was a fire extinguisher.
The glass
door.
Right. Yeah, I guess that was his finest moment as a Knick, or at least his most memorable, the Knick fans. But no, look, he had a great first year with them. I mean, he made them relevant. He had a stretch, I think, where he had like 30 points, like in 10, or it was a lot of consecutive games where he scored 30 points or more. But that was it. I mean, it was, I think it was it later that year they traded for Carmelo? Was it the next year? I'm having trouble remembering now, but. It just didn't work out with Carmelo. Stoudemire just had, his knee problems and his eye problems and this problem. And, it was just, it was a bad signing right from the get-go. Anybody that, looked at the signing said this is not going to turn out well for them. Even if he's good initially, it's not going to turn out well. They were right. And
he had some really great operations.
And I think there was an article that he once said he was like he traced his ancestors back to like ancient Israel. So I remember a big article about that, like in Newsday, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. So that was interesting. But other than that's
because really, there was no other positive news
pretty
to
much
discuss about
Stoudemire,
so they had to.
He's injured again. Oh, he's injured again. No, he doesn't fit in the Knicks offense because of Carmelo. You can't jive and gel and play with Carmelo. So
it's just
I'm actually surprised to go back to Phoenix, unless there was bad blood with him in Phoenix or hurt feelings. You would thought he would have signed a one-day contract to retire with them. Best years were with them. Actually, had a little success with them. Playoffs, made the
played with
finals.
Steve Nash. That was Steve Nash, Leandro Barbosa,
Boris Diaw.
Boris Diaw, yes. They had a couple other good players on that team. All right, well, just gave you a little Knicks flavor too. Why not? Just cover all the sports in New York. I'm ready to share the beer of the week.
Oh yes. The H beer of the week.
This beer was the first sour beer I tried, and it to me is the best beer the sour beer that I've had to date. And I'm sure there'll be sour beers that will top it in the future, but it's one that I will happily go back to. It's called Monk's Cafe Flemish Sour Ale.
Is there a monkey on the bottle?
Monk's, MONK''S, which actually it's interesting you say that because it reminds me that last week's beer had monkey in it. This is Monk's Cafe, and so there is a Monk's Cafe in Philadelphia, and they have 4 Monk's Cafe brewed for them. It's a private label brewed for them by a brewery in Belgium, and as they describe it on their website, medium body, red color, somewhat fruity nose, malt flavor with a slight lactic taste.
Wow.
A real thirst quencher and palate cleanser. Now, I will say, this to me is what you would expect of a sour beer. Not all sour beers are like this, but this one is heavy.
Do they all cleanse the palate, though? Do they all do that?
I really don't drink it with a meal. I just kind of drink it on its own. I have to try that to see. You can. You can get this beer in stores. It's not like you have to go to Monk's Cafe in Philadelphia to drink it. They do sell it in bottles in stores. They sell it in 4-packs of 12-ounce bottles, and they sell it in like the champagne size bottle. But it's a beer that you're not going to have more than 1 or 2 of tops in a sitting because it's that heavy.
I see.
Unless you're really ambitious. But if you really want, what is it? Just a standard sour to have that I have to try. You have to try this one, Monk's Cafe Flemish Sour Ale. So we've kind of over the last 3 weeks we've covered Berliner. We covered Gose, Berliner Weiss, and Sour, which, to no surprise, are my 3 favorite styles to this point, and as the hipster goes more in depth on his beer pursuits. So that's
All
our
right,
show.
Everybody write that down. Monk's Cafe Flemish Sour Ale. I'm looking forward to trying it myself. Yes. All right, next.
So, next week we'll have whatever trade deadline moves that are, affecting New York teams. The Jets news will settle in a little bit more with Fitzpatrick. I think we could, start looking more at football. And whatever else develop, I mean, there'll be some breaking Islander news, I'm sure, to mock.
Breaking
and whatever
news.
else comes our way. All right, so we'll see you next time here from Hip and the Lip. Follow us on Twitter at Hip and the Lip.
And yes, the Lip has sent out a couple Twitters, and the Lip will continue to send out the Twitters. So be alert.
Or speaking of the beer, if you want to follow the new beers that I drink, I rate them on Untappd, UNTAPPD, and my name is Brad Dood, BRADDOOD. So if you want to, get more in real time updates on what beers I'm exploring, check it out. It's an app. If I didn't say it already, I think I did. All right. So,
all right, next.
Thanks for sticking around, all of you dedicated listeners. Yeah, so until next time. All right, bye.
All right, next.
next show. Next show.
Bye.
Bye, Seattle Mariner fans, if you're still listening. Bye.
Oh, yeah, we bid you adieu.
Bye.